Um, this talk is Forging Your Identity, Credibility Beyond Words.
So, how will this talk help you? We're going to discuss some tools and tactics that we use while we're doing social engineering and physical security assessments and things along those lines.
Yeah, so if you're a client or you're a pen tester yourself or you're somebody that wants to be, these are just some of the things that have worked for us that are pretty simplistic and surprising that they still work. So some of this stuff may be information that you've heard before. Some of it may be new, but it does continue to work in the field.
So the scope, identifying it and expanding when you are going or having a kickoff call with the client and you're trying to figure out, okay, what is it exactly that we're assessing? You got to find out what can we do. Whenever we go on site, we're doing social engineering, we're trying to get into a building. If we get into the server room, is it okay for us to take a laptop if we see one that's not locked down, or is it okay for us to remove things from the building, or is lock picking okay? And so you got to basically establish those boundaries and find out all the things that they're okay with.
And some of that also includes installing keyloggers, LAN turtles, drop boxes, anything like that. Actually getting on the client's workstations, depending on the type of assessment. If you're doing physical and social engineering, oftentimes the client will be like, hey, I just want you to test the security awareness of our culture here at the XYZ Corporation. Or I want to test the physical bounds. I want to see if you can get into this department or get into our data center or this executive's office, etc. So I think pushing those bounds is kind of where you're going to find a little bit more oomph in your report, especially when you're pushing it up to, regardless if you're a client or the pen tester, when you're pushing it up to management or the executive level or leadership, when they see that things were actually executed and things were actually done outside of just saying, oh yeah, I went over here and asked this person if I could plug this in, and they said no. Push it a little bit further.
Yeah, and an example, so if a client, like the main point of contact, he might not be the CISO, but he might be the guy that's setting this up. If he is so sure that, hey, there's no way you guys are going to get into that server room, or there's no way you're going to get past that armed guard, into this area where my desk is, then we sort of, at that point, make that a little add-on where they come back later that evening or the next day and one of our business cards is laying on their desk. And so that kind of, it's a little extra value for them, and it's a fun challenge for us as pen testers.
Also, this red team, blue team mentality, as you've probably seen in the community, it's turning more into purple team. So purple team is collaboration. So talking to the client, talking to the point of contact, and saying, hey, what are the sensitive areas that you're concerned with, or what are some of the issues that you've seen? And then that way it kind of saves time too, because oftentimes you're dropped into these assessments and you've only got a week to do it. So, preparing and everything is kind of on the fly, or done in your hotel room the night before. So it's also good to collaborate. It's not a got you. It's not a, hey, look at me, I put this business card in your HR employee file because I got into this room. It's more, hey, I was able to do this, or these are some of the issues you said, and we were able to exploit them.
So Tim talked about preparation. So one of the things that we start off with in the reconnaissance phase is we look at whatever we can find through open source intelligence. So we'll try to find names, the departments that they're in, just anything that we can find about them. I'm sure you all know it's incredible how much free information you can get about someone or a company through just something like Google.
Yeah, or even like Glassdoor, you'll see a lot of people that get mad. Former employees will get on there and they'll write a review about the company. Oh, well, X, Y, and Z, this department sucks. Just complain. And you're like, oh, okay, well, now I'm seeing some of the flaws that maybe I can potentially exploit when I'm on site, pretending to be an employee or a contractor or a vendor or something.
Yeah, and that's you learn things to go in there and gripe about that you've seen common people, people that have worked there before gripe about. So now they say, oh, well, you belong here because you know all the things to gripe about that we do. So just something simple like Glassdoor is a good thing to start with. Talk about the employee culture. Is it a place where they wear suit and tie, or is it very relaxed? You got to know how to dress going in there. Is it formal? Is it informal? How do you act? You also got to learn what industry are they in. That way you can learn shop talk. So if it's a law firm, obviously you don't have to go past the bar or anything, but know enough to talk about. That way, if you're sitting around at lunch or something, or just hanging out in the smoke area, you don't sound like a complete idiot.
And oftentimes you don't even have to talk at all. So you just go there and you become a listening ear and you just hang out. If you got a badge, a fake badge. Smoking areas aren't so much a thing anymore, but going to the cafeteria, going around the lobby, just eavesdropping, talking, or letting other people fill in the gaps for you. An example of this is I was dressed as an employee one time, and I was able to piggyback into the facility. I had a fake badge that I had made up, and we'll get into the fake badges here in a moment, but I was walking around, and when I was doing it, I was taking some pictures of cubicles. I plugged in, started some scans. They had DHCP enabled. So as my laptop was scanning from a conference room, I started walking around to see what I could see as far as the hard copies from the printers, things like that. People would come up to the printers, and they would be printing things. So I would say, oh, hey, could I see that real quick? I want to see what the quality looks like. I'm changing the toner in this printer, and, blah, blah, blah. And so they hand me whatever they printed. Oftentimes, it's sensitive data. So I'm looking over it. Oh, could you print off another copy? And then I'll just keep that copy, and then they'll print off a new one. And I'll say, oh, that looks a little bit better, and then they'll take it with them. But when I was doing that one time, a supervisor, she was peeking around the corner, and she walked up to me. She's like, can I help you? I was like, oh, yeah, I'm just working on the printer here. And she's like, oh, who are you with? I told her, and I was like, oh, my name is Elliot Alderson. I've been using Elliot Alderson on my fake IDs for a little bit. It's becoming a little more popular, Mr. Robot, so now people are starting to recognize that, but it was kind of funny when I first started doing it. So she's like, oh, I don't recognize that name. I was like, oh, I'm from corporate, and this is a satellite office. So she said, oh, okay, so what are you doing exactly, and who are you here with? So I dropped the name. The name I had gotten off of a parking spot outside. So they had names, the full names, not just first or title, but they had full names and the title written on the parking spots outside. So I dropped a name of a network guy, their network director. I was like, oh, I just had lunch with him. Told him I'd meet him here. He said, just go ahead and get started. And she's like, oh, well, his office is downstairs. I was like, oh, okay, is that near the server room? She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, great. Well, I'll just head that way. She goes, well, I'll take you. Well, at that point, somebody had escalated to a security guard. Security guard came over to me, and he's like, hey, what's going on? The guy had a gun and everything. I'm like, oh, crap. So she's like, oh, this is Elliot. He's here to see John. Oh, okay. Well, isn't he downstairs? Yeah. I was about to take him. He's like, well, I can take it. She's like, well, I'll go with you. So now I've got a security guard and a supervisor following me downstairs to where the data center is, and this is where their network guy is, right? I'm like, oh, crap. He's going to be in his office, and he's going to be like, who is this guy? And I'm already compromised. Well, instead of just leaving and saying, all right, or following and then giving them the letter of authorization and saying, hey, you guys got, I can't do this. I just went along with it, and I'm sweating bullets, and they kind of lead me down there. Well, I get over, and they have two-factor authentication. So you had to have a PIN, and you had to have a proximity badge. So I go over. I'm like, I didn't even have to say anything. I was about to swipe in and say, oh, I guess my badge doesn't work. But instead, she says, the supervisor, oh, are you new? And I was like, yeah, I've only been here for a little bit. That's why I was going to meet John. And she's like, oh, okay, well, you probably don't have access, do you? I was like, I don't know. I'll give it a try. So obviously it didn't work. Red light. So the guard's like, oh, well, I can let you in. Security guard badges me in, does his code, and lets me go. I'm like, oh, sweet. Well, I can handle it from here. She's like, okay, well, you know where his office is? And she points to the back of the data center. The data center is kind of segmented with these glass offices where their networking department was. So I just walk over. Some of the network guys are in there. They're kind of looking at me. I just kind of go over and do my thing and just set a business card on his desk, because fortunately he was actually out for lunch. So I was able to take advantage of this. But even doing stuff like that and listening, you don't even have to gather a whole lot of reconnaissance sometimes. You can just listen and let people fill in the gaps for you.
Yeah, it's incredible how much information people will assume just from you being there or acting like you are supposed to be in a certain area, just like what Tim talked about. There's a lot of times where you can just go hang out in the lobby and just listen to people and learn an incredible amount of information. So one of the war stories from a recent engagement was it was a small suite, and they were up on a higher floor. And so we did some reconnaissance and figured out that they only had one main entrance, and then they had a side door and an elevator. We found out the time that they left during the day and the cleaning crew. And so basically, uh, coworker and I, we tried to go up the elevator after everyone had left, but you needed badge access, so we tried to figure out another way. As we were going up the stairs, we found a side door that goes into their suite, and they had a lock with the four pins.
It's like one of those Kata style locks that
Yeah,
the-
that you can bypass with the magnet. But we didn't know that they were going to have that, so unfortunately, didn't have the magnet. So we started. We tried to pick the lock pretty quick. It was making a lot of noise and weren't sure who was on the other side. So we just started guessing, trying to guess the pin code. And people love patterns. 1, 2, 3, 4 didn't work. 1, 3, 2, 4. Patterns like that. So on our 16th try, luckily we guessed what this was, and we walked right into the suite after hours. Obviously, that's a flaw in their physical controls. And so we were walking around there, and the whole point of the engagement was to kind of test their security guards. They were supposed to be watching these cameras from a different building, and I guess there was supposed to be a guard that was around there walking around, but we never saw the guy. I don't know if he took a longer lunch than what he was supposed to or what. So anyway, we were walking around, we were collecting evidence, and we were picking locks, getting in shredder bins and sensitive information, things like that. And so we had been in there for probably about an hour, hour and a half, and no one challenged us. And so we're like, all right, well, let's see what it takes to get someone to catch us. And so the front door, the two glass doors, there was a physical gap. So I had a coat hanger, and I had some napkins from where we had dinner before we went over there. So we were standing at the front door, and I was tying the napkins to this coat hanger, and I was putting it through the physical gap in the door to try and trip the REX sensor on the other side. And so I was going from the floor, and I was doing this like all the way up and down, shaking this coat hanger as much as I could. Think, well, surely somebody's going to see it. Like, well, what in the world is this guy doing? We need to go check it out. No one ever came. And so we were trying different tactics to try and trip this sensor. And eventually we're like, all right, no one's going to come. So we were standing there actually doing jumping jacks in front of the door, looking at the camera.
Being completely absurd. Like,
Yeah,
hey, look at me, look at me.
Waving our hands, and no one ever came. And so obviously that was a huge issue for their security. But the point being, we tried everything. We were trying to push boundaries and do whatever we could to get caught. And fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, we never were. So.
Yeah, and some of these things too, you're like, well, why do you want to get caught? Well, and that goes back to the scope. If the scope is restricted, and you're only like, hey, I just want to see if you guys can get in. When you walk around, you get in, or say you get into the server room or whatever, and then you leave. And you're like, well, that was easy. Let me try that again, but I'm going to try a different approach. And, granted, that's already a finding, right? Because they didn't catch you the first time. You don't have to wear bright colors and do jumping jacks in front of cameras and then take it under the door tool or coat hanger and stick it through the gap and wave it or whatever. Oftentimes, to test them, you can just go up to them and talk to them or just walk through different departments, see if anybody approaches you. Because people get in this habit of the daily grind, and they don't really pay attention.
So, something fun that we like to do is, I know you guys are going to keep watching this over and over, and it's hilarious, but if you're uncomfortable talking to people and are like, well, the social engineering, how do you do that? How do you become good or confident with lying? And that sounds terrible to say, but that's kind of part of the job. So we like to do an exercise where basically, say you go to a mall and you sit down next to someone, have a full conversation with them, but the entire time, don't tell anything that's true. Make up the most absurd story that you can, the most absurd answers for them, and practice. And you'll be able to tell on a stranger's face if they're buying it or not. And then if it doesn't work out, then you just get up and leave, and just try that out. And so
you can kind of flesh out your story too as you're talking. You don't have to say, okay, well, today I'm going to be Todd Rogers, and I'm from Ireland, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to talk to this guy for a while and see what he says to me. You don't have to sit there and already have this kind of predetermined, right? You just kind of build it as you're going, because that's part of the exercise. If you ever take improv classes or do vignettes or anything like that, and acting classes, and I encourage this for anybody that wants to get in social engineering or any kind of covert red team type of assessment. If you're uncomfortable talking to people or uncomfortable with confrontation, then it's really good to sit there and do these acting classes. Because improv, I can't tell you how much, I used to do that a lot in theater in college. I can't tell you how much that has helped me in this industry because of doing this and doing exercises like this.
Yeah, and so if anybody in here wants to volunteer, we could do this with you guys really quick. It's always hilarious.
Guy with the yellow hat.
All right.
The man with the yellow hat.
Yeah, if you want to come up here, that's fine. Yeah. So basically, we're going to have a conversation. I've never met you before. Don't tell me anything that's the truth, okay? We're just going to, just talk like maybe we're in an airport or something. So, hey, man, how's it going? What's your name? That's unfortunate. Oh, well, that's sad. So what do you do for a living? Oh, yeah? That's cool. What are you studying? Oh, yeah.
How old are you? How old are you? Oh, okay. Oh, right on, man. Yeah, what school is that? BYU. What does that stand for? No. What? Oh, no, I haven't.
Oh, well. So anyway, thanks for doing that, man. So it can go deeper and deeper, and sometimes you gotta, just make sure as it flows, you just gotta just learn to roll with the punches. And does anybody else want to try that? We'll take it a bit further. You just got to make sure that even if we ask simple questions, you cannot tell the truth at all.
Yeah. So what happens sometimes too is you kind of stumble over your words.
Yeah. All right. Come on up here. Thanks.
So when you start feeling that, because sometimes multiple people approach, like in the instance of the security guard. So I'm there with the supervisor, and I'm already kind of sweating and trying to think of a lie. And then the security guard comes over, and then he starts questioning me. And so then it becomes this, oh, no, now they're teaming up on me, and it kind of becomes a little intimidating. What's your name? Kira? Okay, what do you do? Oh, okay, you're in high school. Oh, okay.
What grade are you in? Very cool. What's your GPA? Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, I flunked out of school when I was in 5th grade, but, I'm doing okay. So what are you going to do when you graduate? Oh, yeah?
What high school was that you went to? Provo? Oh, I got a friend of mine, John Eric.
Oh, John Eric, yeah.
Yeah. He's got a double last name, or double first name, too. But John Eric teaches English there. Do you know that guy? Oh.
Yeah, Provo High School in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So, are you going into pharmaceuticals or something, or fast food, or what?
Is that the McDonald's on the south side or the north side? Oh, okay. Then you know Janet.
Everybody knows Janet.
Janet's the manager over there.
Yeah. It's cool.
Oh.
Cool. Well, so yeah, so that was really good. I couldn't tell if you were telling the truth or lying. So yeah, that was pretty good. You're an excellent liar.
And people will feed you these traps too. They'll just throw these names. Oh yeah, you're with so and so, or so and so works there. Do you know this person? And they know that person doesn't work there. They know that this person does work there, and so they bait you, right? And a lot of people, especially if they're suspicious right off the bat, and be like, oh, who the heck is this dude? He doesn't look like anybody belongs here. I mean, I know me, for sometimes I have to act as a contractor as of late because of my beard, because some of the places, they have dress codes, or you can't have a beard or whatever. And so I'm like, well, I can't be an employee, so I've got to alter my guise to fit whatever the situation is.
Yeah, and I have similar issues too, where if I go into a place and it's primarily much older people and I look young and, short and everything, I've got to pretend, obviously I'm not an employee there. So yeah, the contractor role is a great one to use. Or, if you find out, a lot of times if you just walk in the front door and you look at the receptionist desk, there'll be a sign-in sheet. So just look at that and they'll say, you can see a name, who they're with, and who they're there to see. And just from doing that, or just from simple reconnaissance, you can find out pretty quick who their vendors are. Who's coming in and working on their printers, who's supplying their office supplies. There's so many different things. Maintenance, are you with maintenance company or whatever? So through that reconnaissance and everything, you can start to build your guys and your backstory. So.
Especially if you've got multiple people on the team, right? So sometimes it's not just you, especially when like a red team or a broader scope, you have multiple consultants on site. So one consultant may take on the guy to something else as the other one takes on another one. For example, not too long ago, I think it's like a month ago or something like that, we were on site, and Brent had overheard uh, who was doing the hiring, who was doing the interviews, and they had a bunch of interviews scheduled this day at this corporate headquarters.
Yeah, we got lucky. They were actually doing a group interview that day there, and I was like, no way, this is perfect.
So he got the names. We went to another facility that we were targeting after we had
the
left
same
the
company.
headquarters, same company. And he got the name of the person hiring, and he wore a suit, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to have this thumb drive, and I'm going to put a malicious payload on it. So he had like I think a reverse interpreter.
Yeah, so I just made a quick PDF with the reverse interpreter shell on it. Walked in the door, and the receptionist was like, yes, ma'am, I'm here to see so-and-so with recruiting. We're supposed to have an interview today at 1 o'clock. It was about 12:30, 12:45. She's like, well, they're doing interviews at the other location. And I was like, really? It was about an hour away. And I was like, I am not going to have time to make it there. My understanding is we were supposed to meet here. And I was like, but I'm really late. And I said, is there any way you can print this resume off for me? And while I'm asking, I'm basically reaching over the desk, trying to put it in her hands, so that that will psychologically trying to help her, hopefully push her to say, okay, well, I've already got it, I might as well. It's kind of a sales tactic of if you let someone hold a product and it's in their hand, it's a greater chance that they are going to have an attachment to that and want to purchase it. So I was trying something along the same lines. She's like, well, I can't print anything. We're not allowed to do that. And I was like, please, I don't have time. This is really important. I don't need this job. I felt terrible for lying to this nice lady.
It was a sweet old lady too. It was like,
nice.
It's like my grandma, and she was acting as a security guard and acting as whatever,
Yeah,
the multiple hat person, right? You're a bunch of roles because we don't have these, and we just need people to fill in the spots.
Yeah. So anyway, she wasn't able to print it off for me, so we gave her kudos later for following through with her security awareness training, which is great. So anyway, I was like, well, I'll just wait here for her, and so I sat on a couch not too far, and while I was doing that, Tim and another guy who worked with, Drew, just came in the front door. They had their fake contractor badges on, and the lady was like, can I see your badge, or who you with? Can you see the badges? And Tim was pretty far away from her, and he was like kind of holding it up like that as he was walking, and as I was trying to distract her.
Well, what's funny about that is that we had made some fake contractor badges, just Photoshop, printed them off, put them in a badge sleeve, and that often works because people don't really get right up in your face looking at your badge, especially if they're generic and they don't have a photo ID. Well, what had happened at the previous location, I was able to obtain some legitimate badges, and one of the badges was active, and it had an Indian guy on it, and so I'm obviously not Indian. So when she's asking me for my photo ID, I'm trying to keep my distance because I don't want her to see this and the name and everything else. Wait a minute, you were definitely not that person.
Yeah. And so I knew that she was starting to try and be a little persistent about it, and so I was trying to be rude and persistent on my end of, can you please print this out? Well, she's gonna be here soon for the interview. I need to do something. And so Tim and Drew were able to just walk right by her. They went into the facilities. I was sitting on the couch. The lady started to call people. She's like, 2 contractors just came in here and something didn't feel right. So she called. Obviously, someone was like, yeah, I don't know who those people are. I wasn't expecting anyone today. And so now she's freaking out. So I'm texting Tim from the couch, listening to all this. Hey, she's suspicious. Hurry up. And then she calls a few other employees. I'm like, well, I think they went upstairs. And so I text Tim and was like, they are actively searching. Get out now.
Brent shows them the other direction, and so they start going that way looking for us.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you're talking about the 2 guys, one with the clipboard? Yeah, they went that way, but they actually went down the other hallway. So they all start going down this hallway, and they're like, thank you for your help. It's like, oh, yeah, you're welcome.
Well, my guys, though, like the disguise I was using, because I had a clipboard, and I wish I had it with me right now, but it's an RFID stealer, so I've got a few different plug-and-play sensors connected to a Raspberry Pi. And so I was using this clipboard to take badge inventory. So I would lay badges on there, pretend I was writing something, and basically scanning them for later cloning. So that's that was the guys we were using. We're contractors. We're here doing inventory. You don't even have to fill that in all the time. But what's funny is that what we were talking about earlier, when people team up on you and they start asking questions, and you're getting multiple questions from different people. Well, this is what happened to that lady, right? So now she's got 3 people, 2 contractors, and this guy here wanting an interview, and she kind of became overwhelmed and just let us in. And then it wasn't until afterwards, when Brent was sitting down, kind of relaxed, and we weren't there, that she started second guessing her decision. Oh no, I think I messed up.
Yeah. So anyway, just through reconnaissance again, as I mentioned earlier, listening. I'm glad that we were at the right place at the right time, listening about the interviews happening that day. We got that was fortunate for us. So.
Well, it's funny too, because Drew and I did actually make it up to the second floor, and all this happened kind of within like 10 or 15 minutes. So we made it up there. I told a lady, "Hey, I'm testing network connectivity," and I switched my guy. So I didn't even maintain the one that I had. I switched it, and I was like, "Hey, we're running fiber, and I need to test the network connectivity on this jack. Can I do this real quick?" "Oh yeah, sure." So she scoots back, lets me have access to her workstation. So from there, I plug in a hardware keylogger. Didn't trip AV or anything. And before I plugged it in, I was like, "Actually, before I do this, can you lock your system?" "Yes." So she locks her system. I see her username on the screen, on the lock screen. So Drew's back there writing down the username. Well, then I plug in the keylogger, and then I was like, "Can you re-authenticate?" "Yes." So she logs in. Now I've got her password and her username. Well, within this time, that's when I start getting the text from Brent, "Hey, they're actively searching for you guys. You need to get out." So we had told this lady, "Hey, we're going to be here for a little bit. I'll come back in hopes of harvesting some more keystrokes or whatever."
Yeah, he told her that I'm going to leave this in here for about an hour. And then right after, he told me later, right after he said, "Yeah, we'll leave it in here about an hour."
I literally just walked away, and then I was like, "Actually, you know what? That's probably enough time."
Yeah, it was like 30 seconds, and so he's removing it. And then, it's funny because they were talking about they were going throughout the building looking at jacks and stuff, and they'd been there for a while. And then right after that, Drew was like, he asked her, "Where's the nearest stairway?" And so obviously she knew then that something was wrong because these guys knew the building, but now they're asking, "Hey, where are the stairs?" So.
But we were able to go out the emergency exit because during the day they didn't have the emergency exit alarms active, so we were able to go out the back and then leave. And then Brent is sitting there in the bottom, and he's like, "Hey, are you guys out?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're down the street a couple blocks."
"Yeah, we're in the car. We'll come pick you up." Yeah. And so as he's telling me this, I made sure the receptionist could hear me, and Tim was like, "Hey, man, we're out in the car." And I was like, "Oh, the interview's tomorrow?" He's like, "Yeah, we're outside. Just come out the front door and we'll pick you up." And he's like, "Well, I guess I had my wires crossed. Thanks for letting me know. I'll see you tomorrow." So I told the receptionist, "Hey, it looks like I messed up. Thank you for your help," and walked out without her, really thinking anything weird was up. So.
But again, this isn't a gotcha. This isn't like, "Hey, haha, we did this." Because after that, we had met with the point of contact, and we arrived back at the facility, and we talked to this lady, and it was funny because Drew and I walked up. She goes, "I knew something was suspicious about you guys." And then Brent comes up, and then she just cracks up, and she's like,
"Oh, it was
like
a reality TV show or something."
"I didn't even know that you were part of it. I didn't know you were that group." But that helps her, right? And this is some of the best security awareness training that you can do. Not this, and I hate to harp on this, but it happens. You do annual security awareness training, and all it is a PowerPoint or a point and click thing, and you have somebody control F-ing through your security policies and procedures just so they can answer these questions and get good enough. "Hey, I got 80%. I'm good for the rest of the year." That's not how security awareness affects security culture within a company. So it's important that even with this stuff that you commend these people. This lady shouldn't get fired or anything like that because I guarantee she's never going to do it again.
Yeah, she's going to look very close at every badge of everyone that walks in there, people she doesn't know. So who remembers the answer to every single question you've ever taken from a PowerPoint training? Okay, that's the point. So you get it. So what do you need for assessments? We talked about Google results and stuff to open source intelligence. You got to know what you're going into, right? You just don't want to walk in there blind and, "Excuse me, sir, can I help you?" "Yeah, I need to get into your server room." That's get out. That's not ever going to work. So you gotta obviously have a backstory, something that's solid and makes sense.
even when you're doing calls too. So say you're doing remote social engineering attempts or just cold calls or whatever, some phishing attempts, whether it's phone and and you can interact with their system or have them navigate to a malicious site or whatever. Most of, a lot of times we'll just do the calls. So setting up call forwarding or like, applications like Zoiper or whatever where you can spoof your caller ID so it looks like it's coming from either that area or actually a number within the facility.
Yeah, an internal extension. That's a great way. Documentation. So obviously, when you're going around, we have what we call the get out of jail free card, and this is the legitimate one that's printed off and signed by the point of contact with the client. That way, if you're caught and they just aren't buying it, and you have to give it up and say, hey, all right, you caught me. Here is the letter saying, please don't call the police and have me arrested, and all of that stuff. And Tim likes to use a fake letter of authorization. I'll let you talk about that, Tim.
Yeah, so the reason why I like to use a fake letter of authorization, and there's a few other people in the industry that love to use this as well. It tests incident response. So even if incident response isn't a part of the scope, it still helps because it's part of your guides, right? And you kind of get at least a generic idea. Did they follow through and call the point of contact on this letter? Did they pay attention to the verbiage in the letter? Most of the time they don't. Every time I've ever had to use a fake letter of authorization, whether it's a security guard or an employee that reads through it, they just kind of glaze through it and they're like, oh, okay. And then I push it an extra step and I'm like, hey, I'm going to be here a while, so if you could tell the rest of the security guards kind of what I'm doing so they don't bug me, that'd be great. Oh, yeah, I can do that. And that's happened. Security guards will tell the rest of the team or the rest of the guys walking around, hey, there's a guy here doing an assessment with ABC fishtails and, or whatever fake pen testing group that I put on there. And oftentimes I'll use Brent's name or someone else on the team. I'll use their name as the point of contact for the target facility as the CISO or whatever.
Yep.
So if you aim high, sometimes they don't even look at that. But yeah, they just kind of glance through it and they hand it over. So this is a great way to say, you know what, you guys did great at catching me, but you didn't follow through. You didn't confirm I am who I say I am. Because at that point, I switch guys twice. Oh, I'm here, I'm doing inventory or whatever. No, you're not. That's a fake badge. What are you doing here? Oh, I'm with a fake company. And they're like, oh, okay, that's good to go. It shouldn't end there. They should call. They should wait. Hey, I need you to stay here. Let me call and verify you are who you say you are, and that this person is a legitimate point of contact for the client. But the fake letter of authorization, you'll see on the screen here, it's kind of a generic letter. What should it say? On this, I think I had typed up the verbiage to sound super, it allowed me to do whatever I wanted to, basically. And, oh, yeah, I may be crawling in your dumpsters. I may be crawling over your your walls to see if floor to ceiling is on your data center and all this other stuff. I'm testing your locks. I'm doing this, this, and this. And then it kind of gives you a hall pass to do whatever you want.
And the funny thing is, on every fake letter of authorization, he has the address of the White House.
Oh, yeah.
And no one has ever picked up on that. And the first thing you see up on the top left, right under, and it has the fake security name and then the address of the White House. And something else too, it's when you are approached by a security guard and you're like, hey, I'm here with security doing an assessment. You're like, I'm with security too. This is awesome. And then you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're security buddies. And so, and again, not knocking security guards or anything by any means.
Although we do have a talk called Security Guards LOL, if you want to ever check that out.
Yeah. Thanks for totally negating my statement. So basically, they get excited, and so and like Tim said, they will go tell, like, hey, don't bother those guys. They're with security doing an assessment. Like, oh, cool. So go back real quick. We talked about the badges, looking at those through Recon. One assessment, that morning, I went over and sat in a cafe that was adjacent to the building, and while the employees were in there having coffee and their breakfast, I was sitting there with my laptop with Photoshop making a fake badge while I'm looking at their badges, then walked across the street to my hotel, printed it out, put it in a sleeve, and came back in and used that to ultimately get into the server room unsupervised for about 2 hours doing inventory. So, just simple recon with the you could probably, in some of these cases, have a badge that you color with a crayon and just walk in as long as there's something hanging from your neck, and people won't even look at it.
Funny story. I did not know what the badges looked like at one facility, and I walked in and I had a badge sleeve. So badge sleeves are one of the things that we carry on us all the time, or just a blank kid badge you can flip over because sometimes badges flip and you just have the white one. But I'd walked in, didn't know what the badges looked like. As I'm walking around, I kind of get an idea of it because I'm looking at people's badges. Well, I walk into their mailroom, and they have envelopes on the letterheads for their company, all their logos, and it's the same color scheme and everything. Well, I take a bunch of these and I go into the bathroom, and it's arts and crafts time in the bathroom stall. As I'm ripping up the letterhead, and I'm ripping up the logos, and I'm placing them and taping them to look like a badge within this blank sleeve. And this thing worked at two different facilities, and I was there for probably like 2 or 3 hours doing my thing. Nobody asked anything. So it was kind of funny that he
Does your
mentions
badge smell like pee? No one asked you that?
no one asked that. But that's funny that he mentions the crayons because even aside from like crayons and stuff like that, just using the resources that you have when you're there. Brent was in a facility not too long ago and trying to bypass a rec center. And so they found some canned air within the facility, so you don't even have to prepare sometimes. Found some canned air, turned it upside down,
But do
sprayed it.
prepare.
Yeah, do prepare, but oftentimes when you're just dropped in cold like that. But they found some canned air, and they were able to get into the facility and bypass the rec center with canned air. I mean, you could do that with a vape or anything like that too, but because these gaps between the doors, it's easy to bypass those. And so just using some of the stuff that the client actually provides for you.
Yeah, clipboards are incredible. If you find a place like a larger, this usually works in larger facilities. If you walk around with a clipboard and a tape measure on your pants and maybe even a hard hat, no one's ever going to ask you anything. I mean, you can walk around. You can do basically whatever you want with that. I've found. I'm sure that there are people that have done that have been challenged, but in that's a great disguise. So no one wants to bother the guy with the clipboard and the hard hat.
And especially if you're using a team of guys, you know, you look at kind of how they are and what their strengths are. You know, someone that's good at talking. Obviously, maybe you can be a contractor or a fake employee. Okay, well, maybe you're not so good at talking and you have this big bushy beard and you look like you just got a, you know, federal prison. Maybe you can be someone else. And so adjusting your guises and roles to fit whatever you're more comfortable with is also always a good thing.
Yeah, and backpacks, tactical backpacks. I love those. I have one myself that I use. But when you're walking around an office and you're wearing a gigantic tactical backpack with patches and things on it, it's going to stand out, especially when everyone else might have a small little shoulder bag or something like that. So pay attention to things like that too.
And backpacks are typically pretty, you know, no-no anyway. I mean, just carrying a backpack, unless you're like an IT guy and they know you, I think we both would discourage against backpacks in general.
Okay, here's just a quick example of some sanitized fake badges that we've used. I don't know why I keep using that picture. It makes it official looking, maybe.
It's a suit, man. You look like an exec.
Yeah. So that's just a quick idea on that. I think we've talked about that enough already. So how to make your story believable?
Well, redirection. You know, changing the subject. Talking to somebody, we did this exercise earlier. You know, start talking about, oh, well, who are you with, or you know, what are you doing here? Oh, actually, you know, I just had lunch with John. I'm supposed to meet that guy here, or I just did this, and I'm supposed to do that. And redirecting the conversation. This is just like a sales tactic too. You know, when you're talking to somebody, and I think Brent could probably speak on this too. He's pretty good at the redirection.
Yeah, and so you walk in the front door, and hey, I'm with the printer company. We're here to do some maintenance on printers. And so they start looking, well, we didn't really have anything scheduled today. And so you kind of interrupt, and they have a picture of their kid or something on their desk. Like, before they can even finish, they're like, oh, is that your kid? They play soccer? That's little Bobby drop tables. Like, oh, he's so cute. My daughter plays soccer too. And so, you know, you start that in such a simple redirection. And through that redirect and taking her mind off of, hey, you guys aren't scheduled today, now you're talking about their kids. And now their eyes light up, and now you're building that trust. And I sound like a terrible person saying all this stuff. But anyway, it's part of the job, unfortunately. But so you build trust. And so as they continue to challenge you, you can ask a question back, because you always hear the old adage, the sales tactic, that the person asking the questions is the one that's in control of the conversation. And so that's just something that we try to keep in mind not only in person, but when we're doing social engineering phone calls as well.
Yeah, one of the calls that I did not too long ago, it was in Minnesota. So Prince had just died, and I called, and then we started talking about Prince, and I established this rapport because we're talking about something that we have in common. And they're like, oh yeah, it was hard, blah blah blah, and then we start joking, making you know light conversation, and then you start getting into, okay, so what's your password complexity? Is this enforced? All right, well, we're seeing that the password complexity isn't enforced across the blah, blah, blah. So, we just want to make sure that yours is in compliance. So do you have like dictionary word? Actually, better yet, what is the current password that you're using? We can change this later. I've signed a non-disclosure agreement. It's all good. And a lot of times, people will just hand over a password just from doing that.
Yeah, it's pretty stupid, but it works. So, yeah, that's true. So,
short and sweet.
Yeah, short. Thanks, buddy. So anyway, just keep it to a minimum. You don't have to go into in-depth conversation with people. Usually, the more details you try to give people, the more that it's going to raise some sort of an intuition flag. So just keep it short. And as we talked about earlier, people will assume so much. They'll even give you answers. And they'll say, I'm here to see, I can't remember the name of who's in charge of IT. I'm new to the area. And they're like, oh, so-and-so. Oh, yeah, that's it. Thank you. And they'll do that all the time. Although they'll even say, they'll ask you a question and you can give them a wrong answer on purpose, and they will correct you with the right answer. It works so much. It's like, thank you for telling me what I didn't know.
Yep. And I think we touched on the vague and concise. Again, keeping it vague, let them fill in the blank. So in this next war story, this is pretty funny. Security guard sitting at a table with a guy who's there. We had piggybacked through the back. Actually, no, we didn't. We used the shove knife, and we were able to get through because they had a gap, and the plate was kind of off-centered, so we were able to use a shove knife and get in, bypass the electronic badge reader.
Yeah, shove knives are great, by the way. If you do physical assessments, get a shove knife.
Yep. So we got in. We were walking around doing our thing. Well, I got to where their security room is. This is where they control the security, alarm, fire suppression, make badges, the photo room, all that stuff. So I walked by, and there's a glass panel on the door. I can see in there, nobody's in there, the lights are off, but there's all kinds of goodies. And I was like, we got to get in this here. So I tried to pick it. I couldn't. They use like dimple locks. So I'm like, I'm trying to do it. A lot of congestion, people walking back and forth. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask the security guard for his key. My partner's like, okay. So we walked to the front, and we had already, done our thing, but I'm pushing, right? I'm pushing the envelope. I want to go further. I want to see what I can do. And what's great about this is that you're not doing it illegally, so it doesn't matter if they, catch you. You're there. You're supposed to do this, so you're able to push the bounds a little bit more than what a criminal that may not be so bold may attempt. So I walk over. I had some bump keys, and I'm tapping it on the desk, and I'm like, hey, John from facilities said, I'm doing some key inventory, and John from facilities gave me his key. He's supposed to let me in downstairs, but I guess you changed your cores recently. He said I could borrow your keys, and I'll bring them right back. So he looks at me. He's like, sure. Just make sure you bring them back because I got to lock up in a couple hours. I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave my keys here. That way I'm coming back.
Yeah.
I didn't have to come back, and they're bump keys. So I set them there, and, I typically don't use my bump keys because they're loud. They mess up pins and stuff, but I just had them on me, and I set them there, and I was like, if I lose those, it's no big deal. So I give it to him. I was like, I'll be back. He's like, okay, great. So he continues doing his job, and I've got his keys. Now these keys have access to all the hard locks in the facility, but I'm like, oh, which one is the security control room? Oh, it's that one. Okay, great. So I leave. We get into the security control room. Well, they have an aluminum box with like a wafer lock. Able to pick that, get into there. They have keys to company vehicles, keys to different places within the facility, keys to other facilities.
Everything.
And the key on there is actually a hand-filed key because it was arts and crafts time again. We took a picture of the keys because we weren't allowed to take them with us. So we took a picture of the key that opened up a data center at another facility that we were to test the next day. So we leave, we go to Lowe's and get a file. We're sitting there in the hotel, and we're arts and crafts. We end up making and duplicating this key from a picture. We took several pictures and things like that, and so it was pretty easy. And so as this happened, the next day we actually got into the data center with the key that we hand filed the night before. But I go back, I give the guards his keys, it's all good, and he's like, okay, great, thanks. I'm like, no, thank you. And then I leave. So again, the security awareness is very important, not only for your employee body, but for your vendors too. And looking at the security guards, that's one of your first layer of security, right, in your defense. And you're depending on them to stop this kind of thing from happening. And if it's not tested, you don't know, how are they going to handle this?
Right. And so another issue that we've seen while Tim's talking about, the security guard often being the first layer, we see issues so many times where it'll be a large building and they only have one, maybe two security guards sitting at the front door checking people as they come in and out, but they're not even looking at the 10 other doors around the building or the other possible ways, the fire escape, things like that. So many other entries that if you have a 2 or 3 man team going in, distracting those security guards at the front, then who's watching the cameras for the other doors? And so those are just some of the issues. Those are some of the things we talk about in our security guards LOL talk too. But we're kind of
well, we were talking too, about some of this. Some of this stuff is old package, right? It's like, oh, I'm the florist, and I'm here to bring flowers for so and so. As my partner comes behind me and walks in, stuff works. Distractions work.
yeah,
Regardless how you shape them or mold them or present them, they work.
right. Or just going and getting like 10 pizza boxes. Go to a pizza place. Hey,
Yeah.
can I get a few extra boxes? I'm like, sure. Just walk up the door. Your hands are full. You're kind of like kicking the door or looking at somebody. Hey, my hands are full with pizza. No one's going to say, oh, turn the guy with pizza away. Don't let him in.
Right.
So, just something simple and cheap like that works too. So the backup plan, again, we talked about fake letter of authorization. Did they read it, or did they just say, okay, cool, thank you for giving me something totally fake. I don't do my job very well. Go do what you want. So, did that happen, or Tim?
Yeah, I like to use this as my backup plan. You're not going to take off and bolt and try to run. If they do catch you and, you try to use the fake letter and they rip it up and they're like, no, you're not who you say you are, you want to make sure that you have points of contact to contact, multiple points of contact. Not just one because so-and-so may be on vacation or out.
That happens a lot
to
to us
lunch.
for some reason.
It does. And where this happens is like now they're in a position where I can't reach the person you said, and they may call the police or then law enforcement or something like that becomes involved, and they can get a nasty situation out of that. So you want to make sure that you do have your legitimate letter as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of what we were talking about just a second ago. What happens when they don't buy it? Use the real letter. Don't, you can push and push, and sometimes people will use the guise of the angry guy. You know what? I'm in a hurry. Don't bother me. You're messing up, blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of times, depending on who you have, either they're going to recoil and they're going to let you kind of do whatever, but most of the time that's not the case. If you get angry, especially if it's a security guard, they're going to get angrier. And then it's going to become this ego challenge. And you don't want that. You're there to help the client, not to tick off, their vendors.
Right. So, yeah. So let's see. Something I want to mention. In your letter of authorization, the real one, make sure that you put language in there that specifically says the client will do anything necessary to make sure you are not apprehended by local or federal authorities. That's very important to put in there. Then they make sure, okay, if something does happen and let's say one of us do get arrested for whatever reason because the person that's there is just, they're not even reading the real letter, they're not having it. They're having a bad day and you just caught them at the wrong time. If the client isn't going out of their way to make sure that you're not arrested, then that could potentially become legal issues. I mean, that's fortunately has not happened to us, but just make sure that you're covering your tracks by putting that specific language in there.
All right, revisiting the scope. So you've done your thing, you've got in there, you've compromised some systems, you've got some credentials, sensitive data, whatever. Start collecting your stuff. Sometimes we'll leave and be like, oh crap, I left that land turtle plugged in there.
Yeah, I just bought that thing.
It's $50 down the drain. So you need to make sure that you're collecting your keyloggers, your whatever, your drop boxes, your pineapples, whatever you're using. in the facility, don't forget them. This also includes if for whatever reason you have to leave a door unlocked or propped or something like that, you don't want to leave that unlocked or propped open because that becomes a risk, right? And so you want to make sure that you're smart about it, but you also want to make sure that you're collecting all these things.
Yeah, and so if you're putting payloads on USB drives and laying those around, make sure that you take note of where they are or what they look like. That way you're not forgetting 5 or 6 of these things on site, and then now, a week later they're getting AV alerts because, someone's trying to run an interpreter shell or something like that. So make sure you keep track of those things like that as well.
Then cameras too, depending on what the client communicates and whatever their needs are, they may have installed a new camera system. Oh, we want to see if this covers this or this. Can you try to get in without being shown on the camera? And so these are some things you may want to consider too. Well, if I go in this way, there's a PTZ there, they're going to see me, there's a guard at the station or whatever. I may need to try going this way or that way. So making sure that you're trying to test those things as well and keeping those in mind.
Yeah, and if the assessment is extreme enough and the client is for some reason okay with you destroying a camera,
which is rare,
which is extremely rare, buy the Arctic laser. That's the one that can actually pop balloons from a distance. That will fry a camera so fast.
Yeah, some of the older cameras with the tubes in it, the old CCTV cameras.
So I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to talk about today. I know we're out of time, but if anyone has any questions or anything for us, please come see us. We'll be over here for a few minutes. We're more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So thank you guys. Thanks for the ones that participated. Thanks.
Thanks everyone.